Hey everyone, it's October 11th, 4:20 Central Standard Time. So I just found out today through sort of psychedelic professional channels that um, a friend and other clinical researcher, Dr. Nolan Williams, passed away. He succumbed to suicide, and it's extremely tragic. And I just wanted to, one, just express the grief and offer condolences to his family, his wife, his kids, um, everyone that knew him really well, the people in his lab, those closest to him. I was friends with him in the Bay Area, kind of in the earlier days of, psychedelic research coming up. I think we met in like 2011 or 2012, somewhere around there. Might be a little bit after that. I'm kind of fuzzy on the timeline, but there was a lot of us that were trainees, like residents and postdocs and other folks that were doing our work in kind of the medical world, research world at like UCSF and Stanford, trying to really figure out how to do psychedelic research at these institutions because there wasn't anything happening at the time, but we were all really interested in doing it and kind of connected through, intersections with interests with, following and being a part of the group of like Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies and going to Burning Man and kind of being psychonauts ourselves and having personal experience and really trying to figure out how can we leverage our credibility and all this training we have in understanding how the brain works and understanding mental health and understanding that world and trying to use that to bring psychedelics into that to try to help people heal from like really complex mental health conditions or neurological conditions. And so, we were always running in like similar circles to try and figure out how to do this while also trying to like keep our own kind of training and credentialing going so we could be legitimate people. And at one point, I was friends with him and his first wife, Emily. And when their marriage ended, she actually tried to set us up. And so we went on a couple dates and just decided to be friends, but kind of, kept kind of talking about how can we, because I think he was working on trying to get a position at Stanford and I was trying to figure out how to, transition from a postdoc into a faculty while I was at UCSF at the time and ended up getting recruited to the University of Minnesota and just kind of figuring out how can we negotiate, you know, doing this work within these academic settings, within these clinical departments that might not be super supportive of it. And I remember kind of thinking like maybe he kind of fell away from doing all that and it seemed like he was really more focused on like neuromodulation and it's kind of in the vein of psychedelic research was always really risky and don't quit your day job. And so I think both of us kind of went along this path of making sure that we were still doing other types of work. So I was doing stuff in like machine learning and data science and neuroinformatics and things like that. And he was doing neuromodulation. And, the pace at which psychedelic research is coming online is so slow. And a lot of the things that people are trying to treat with psychedelics, it's like those people can't wait for these things to become FDA approved. That doesn't feel like it's going to happen in any kind of quick way, and people need quick solutions. And so he came up with and helped develop this neuromodulation device called Saint, which is appropriately named, I think, in retrospect and in context that really tried to help, like stimulate parts of the brain non-invasively to help people with really severe mental illness kind of get out of like these deep episodes quickly. And like working with folks with suicidality, which is obviously one of the more severe side effects of depression. And it's just so tragic for someone who was so dedicated to helping people come out of that dark place, to succumb himself to that darkness. And it's just making me reflect a lot on, I wasn't strong enough to stay in academia and fight that fight myself. I struggled with burnout. I had a nervous breakdown. I had suicidality myself. I suffered my own losses and griefs trying to do all this work while trying to like maintain and start a family. And I remember there was a project I was working on related to suicidality that really made it hard to grapple with my own. And I just remember thinking, like, this is risky. And I don't know. And I hadn't talked to him in years, and I am profoundly regretting, like, not checking in with him more. Because it's just such hard work. And I think people that are kind of working in this space, that you have to, like, seem like you have all your shit together, and you want to put forth this like strong presence so that people can trust you and listen to you and be inspired by you, and doing all that work while not recognizing that that person is also probably struggling and dealing with their own demons. And just speaking for myself, I feel like, I thought if I could find a way out of this for others, then I would find a way out myself. And I got to a point where I couldn't do that anymore, and it became too overwhelming, and I had to step away from all of that to save my own life. And I'm just really sad that I've lost a friend and a colleague in the clinical research space, and also just a champion for people struggling with the darkest things that you can imagine. And so yeah, he will be missed. He provided some great contributions, not only to the neuromodulation world, but also to the psychedelic research community. And I'll miss my friend, and I'll miss him, and may he rest in peace. And may we all take a step back and acknowledge and recognize that we shouldn't feel like we have to struggle alone, or think that we can kind of solve these problems intellectually, or wait for the right treatment to come along. And lean on each other, and reach out to your people, reach out to those you love, tell people you love them often, check in with people. Don't let relationships fall to the wayside because you're too busy. Thanks for listening.